Hey everybody, Chris Policita and Matt Collins coming to you live here for the first ever DDL Podcast, wrapping up year one here. It's January 1st, so of course, Happy New Year to all of our listeners out there. Chris, you're a 33-year-old with a crazy 2-year-old, a wife who's 8 months pregnant. What's New Year's look like for you?
He's almost 3, so he went to bed at about 7:30.
Okay.
And I went to bed about 7:32. We stayed up. We had my wife's brother and sister-in-law came over for a little while. We had a big hearty bowl of chili.
Nice. Did you make that?
Nice little chili. Played categories, which I absolutely dominated, won 4 games in a row. It was child's play. And Zach went to bed about 8:15. We went to bed about 10, and that was it. Did not watch the ball drop, didn't get back up. I have no interest in Mariah Carey's Tea. I guess that's the meme going around today. I don't know what it's about. Don't know, don't care.
No idea.
Listen, I'm just trying to get some sleep. That's it. It's just another day for me.
When's the last time you saw the ball drop, honestly?
Not last year, not the year before. Had to be the year before that. So, I don't know. What was that, 2015?
Jeez. Yeah, I think I'm in the same boat. I, in a similar boat to you, except for got the second kid with no pregnant wife, though. Did a little confetti at 8:45 in bed by 9:50.
It's great.
Made everybody happy. We threw the 2017 ball dropping on YouTube. Avery had no idea. She's only 3.5. We might as well have been staying up to midnight. It was perfect. Got our sleep, and it's a wrap.
It's a great dad move to pull the YouTube of the ball drop. The kids are none the wiser, and you're getting a good night's sleep. You can't ask for more than that.
How long until she figures it out, though? That it's always the previous year.
I think you've got 1 more year.
Okay.
You got nice. 1 more year.
Well, you're giving her a lot of credit.
You got 1 more.
She is my kid, after all. So back to the topic at hand here. We're wrapping up the DDL season 1 here. Big victory by Team Hercules, Andy Hirko. Andy's a relatively small-time player. He does a lot of home leagues, and this was his first big-time league. So I feel like winning this thing was kind of a becoming a man for Andy Hirko, and it just reminded me of another time that I witnessed firsthand Andy becoming a man. And if I could a little bit, just tell everybody a little story about one of my first experiences with Andy Hirko. We went to Fitchburg State College. My roommate was John Hirko, his older brother, manager of the West Canaan Coyotes. He and I lived together for 3 years. Andy's the youngest of the Hirko boys. And Andy comes up and is going to spend an evening. I think it was his senior year of high school. And he was going to spend an evening at Fitchburg State. Great time. You ever been, Chris?
I've been a few times. I have had a couple great times. Most of them, I got to say, I don't remember. But that's how we know it was a great time, right?
Exactly. And Andy certainly enjoyed one of these evenings this particular night. So, just the usual night, Saturday night, we head out on the town, house party here, house party there. And, the group that we're out with kind of breaks up a little bit. And Johnny and I stay out a little bit longer. And we head back to the house probably around 2:30 in the morning. And just going to shut it down for the evening, go, pass out in the bedroom. So I open my bedroom door, and who do I see? Butt cheeks in the air, Andy Hirko. He's just
How do you do?
He's just pounding away like a rabbit fresh out of prison at some poor unsuspecting young lady. And I say, Andy, what's up? What are you doing, man? And he turns around, and he stops what he's doing, thank God. And he says, Maddie, get out of here. And I'm like, Andy, it's my bedroom, man. You get out of here. It's like, sorry, Maddie, ain't going to happen. And I said, I'm a curious guy, so I stick around a little bit, try to see who's underneath. And I'm not going to say who it was or the relationship to anybody involved in this league here, but let's just say Andy became a man on my bed without me knowing, and I walk in on him. This is circa 2007, 2006, wow. Something along those lines. So I gotta believe winning DDL is similar to that very moment. Just had to share that story. Andy, hope you put the kids and the wife away before you played this part of the podcast. Probably should have thrown that warning out to you before, but it's all in good fun. Hey,
I feel like I know a little more about Andy now than I did before. I'm grateful for that story. I hope everyone enjoys it.
Well, here's the thing. There's 12 teams in the league. 3 of them are managed by a Hirko brother.
I know. It's basically a Hirko league.
And the little-known fact of the most athletic of the 4 Hirkos isn't in the league.
Oh, really?
Hirko, he's a state trooper down in Tennessee. He's about 6'4", 230 pure muscle. Maybe I'm shading a few lbs off there, but he's a big boy, great football player, great dude, great family. But enough about the Hirkos here. Let's get to the important stuff. Wrapping up here, just wanted to talk about a few of the things that, some storylines from the year, Chris. What's one of the things that stood out to you this year?
Yeah, so, I just one of the things that was crazy to me about this year was the amount of streakiness for a league that was genuinely had 9, maybe 10. I would go as far as to say there were 10 competitive teams all year that could win on any given week. I mean, you saw streaks of 9 wins. Tim had 12 wins before getting bounced in the playoffs. You had long losing streaks by teams that myself, I had a 7-game losing streak to close the season, which it hurts. But, it's just crazy to me that we saw so many streaks. And then, in perfect fashion, we had Andy get hot in the playoffs. I mean, he won 2 in a row to get in the playoffs, and then he banged out 3 in a row to win it. So he ends the season on a 5-game winning streak. It's very surprising to me in a league with this much parity where you had 10 teams over, 1,700-ish points. I mean, that's a very competitive league. It's just surprising to me that we had so many streaky teams. You just wouldn't expect that.
Yeah, I kind of piggybacking off that in terms of points is I look at a team like Beef Herky, not to keep talking about the Hirkos here, but the oldest Rick Hirko here, I thought he had an outstanding draft. I thought he put together a great team, made some quality moves early, spent a little money, traded for Jordan Reed, which may have been the downfall of his team. I mean, he's got a lot of guys on here that flat out just didn't perform. There's no way that this team was 4-9.
Definitely a disappointment for him.
I think he could probably stare at, as well as a lot of this guy's owners could, is Amari Cooper. I mean, he looked at this guy to be his, one of the tent poles of this team, and he really just shit the bed. If you look at his wide receiving core with, Antonio Brown, DeAndre Hopkins, and Amari Cooper, that in and of itself should be enough for a playoff berth. 5 games under 500.
I think what did him in a little bit was he really only had one QB he could count on. Carson Palmer was very inconsistent when he was playing, and then got hurt. So I think that really hurt him a little bit. I know you mentioned he had a good draft. I agree. I also thought the Jim and Blake combo had a very good draft. And then one of the surprises to me was they just sort of blew it up. I don't, they gave away a bunch of guys during the rookie draft to get more money, which, they ended up getting, Dalvin Cook and Christian McCaffrey, but me and Graham and myself had all the money, and we basically got all the players. It just seemed like an uphill battle for him to try and get in there and try and make some splashes. It really just snowballed on him, and without a doubt, the worst team in the league. It's just very surprising coming off the draft where I really thought they did really well. They just got a ton of value. They had a ton of wide receivers to build around. It was just odd. I didn't really quite understand it. It was surprising to me.
Didn't they bail Ruby out? Ruby had a weird draft, and then they did. Who was it for? Was it for Beckham? Oh, yeah, it was Beckham.
It was for Beckham. They gave a ton to get Beckham, and it basically made both of the teams worse.
Yes, because you're looking at two teams that finished near the bottom, and that's one of the things that I wanted to point out is we lost Ruby halfway through the season, unfortunately, but we picked up a phenomenal owner in Colin Missett, and I thought he did a great job down the stretch. I mean, I'll have to take a peek here, but when he took over he
started competing right away, basically.
They were like 1-6 or something, and they ended up 5-8.
Yeah.
And that's with him making a few moves to prepare for the future. I mean, he made some great trades. With me, it turned out they didn't work out so well for me, but he gives up Ted Ginn. He gives up, Vernon Davis for some cash, and he ends up putting some away for next year, and he doesn't miss a beat. He ends the season at 5-8, and I think he's looking pretty sharp going into next year.
Yeah, I agree. It was nice to get him on board. I'm glad he joined, especially to get his feet wet, just because the format's so unique. It's not only the scoring, but you've got the betting and whatnot. I thought he did a very good job down the stretch. Made that team very competitive. And that team, let's talk about that team a little bit here. They're in good shape. I mean, this is in a league where it's a super flex and you really need to start two QBs. He's got 4 that look pretty strong going forward. He's got Stafford, Cousins, Patrick Mahomes, and Trubisky. Now, it remains to be seen about the rookies, but they both flashed in their rookie season. So
right.
He's in good shape, I would say,
Yeah, you can't overlook the fact that he lost Zeke Elliott for a bit there. He's got him coming back. I think you're going to get an uptick from Doxson going forward. He's got Derrick Henry, who should, if there's any brains out in Tennessee, take over the reins in that backfield. Alshon Jeffrey's just getting going, I think, in Philly. He's got the young tight end out of San Francisco and George Kittle.
Yep.
George Gary, what's his first name?
What's that?
I had a George. Yeah, George Kittle.
Kittle, right?
Yeah. Yep. Marlon Mack, who, if the Colts don't bring in another running back, and if Frank Gore doesn't come back for his 23rd season, Marlon Mack might be the guy out there in Indy. So yeah, I couldn't agree more. You got Quincy Anunya, Cam Meredith coming back. This could be a top 3 team next year in all reality.
I mean, I can't rule it out. Just like as we mentioned, I mean, the parity across the league is really impressive. The one thing that I should mention, I think it's a huge ongoing storyline, is Graham has all the money. Graham has an ungodly amount of money coming. He can buy whoever he wants. I mean, I don't know if it's going to turn the ship around right away, but within 2 years, this team could be just a complete and utter juggernaut. He has like 3 times the amount of money that anyone else is going to have in this rookie draft. And, he can go out. He can basically get Saquon Barkley for whatever price he wants. He can get the number 2 and number 3 prospects and still have enough next year to get the number 1, number 2, and number 3 prospects if he wants to do it. It's just a matter of how he manages his money, when he chooses to splash in. But to me, that's just that's an ongoing storyline that's just fascinating to me how it's going to play out.
And one of the indirect consequences, I think, there is you're not going to see any other teams get much better, since he's going to take the top 3 most impactful guys in this rookie class. So if you're going to see teams improve, you're going to have to see, maybe some teams start to go into a rebuild and start selling a little bit. But like you said, there's so much parity. I think there's 10 teams who think they could win it year in and year out. So you're not going to see any teams willingly looking to rebuild and sell. I don't think there's going to be a ton of free agent acquisitions in the offseason. There's just nothing there really. So if it's going to happen, it's going to have to be done through the draft. And like you said, Graham's got that situation monopolized for at least the next couple of years. So, so the teams that drafted relatively young, I think, are in good shape for the next couple of years. But the teams that are a little bit older, a little bit, more inconsistent, might find themselves towards the bottom of the table in both divisions. I think you might be looking at, myself, Shotgun Arties could be plummeting. Not sure what Melvin Gordon's going to bring. DeMarco Murray, definitely going to drop off. And then Jim and Blake, I think I still see them towards the bottom of the table. They've got the second most money.
Yeah.
I think their job this offseason is simply to make Graham spend as much money as possible, since they're the only ones close to what he's got.
Right. Yeah. They've got to price and force at least a little bit. I agree. I think I think John Hirko had a nice run this year, and he's not old by any stretch of the imagination, but I do wonder if he falls off just a little bit. I mean, Tom Brady, I know he's getting older, but he'll get Wentz back. I mean, he's not old at all, but there's some holes.
If you look
there's some holes there. I could see them dropping off. I could see Tim, who just seemed to walk on water all year. He's got no good QBs. I could see him dropping off a little bit unless he makes a change there. I could even see Joe falling off a little. You've got, Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers anchoring his squad, and Jimmy Garoppolo waiting in the wings. So, the rest of his squad leaves a little bit to be desired, but I know that about him. So,
yeah, I mean,
we'll see where he goes.
Looking at Joe's team, he's got a few guys here that I think had down years who might show up next year. If you're looking at, obviously Josh Gordon missing the first 3 quarters of the season. T.Y. Hilton playing without Andy Luck for the entire season. Joe scares me a little bit going forward. Obviously he might, who knows what happens with Fitzgerald. Latavius Murray obviously loses his job. He's got to figure out the tight end spot. But the skill position players are absolutely here for Joe. One thing I did want to mention that I was a little disappointed in this year was that the mandatory betting didn't really take off the way I know that you had hoped that it would. And I think that really started in the preseason. Nobody was really willing to bet on, baseball games, college basketball, NBA, things like that. I mean, I thought that was one of the purposes of the league here is to try to generate action all year round. And, it was a startup draft, so there wasn't too much going on in terms of the league. But, it would have been nice to see people participate a little bit more in the betting. We only had, 6 participants in the survivor pool. What do you think about that, Chris? I was a little disappointed.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree. It was a little disappointing, but, that's one of the things. I don't think people realize that you could really do some damage if you're good at betting. Like if you get on a run, I mean, you can basically get a free acquisition during the season. You can get equivalent to basically, a pick. I mean, I think Aaron is by my unofficial, tallies through the season. I think Aaron really, really did well betting, mostly because he bets Joe on We Jeopardy and just destroys him.
And Joe is usually passed out when these bets happen.
Right.
Kudos to Joe. Or kudos to Aaron.
I don't think people realize, just how much of a difference it can make, especially when we have this budget that just constantly carries over. But, I understand, like, it's a decent amount of work. Like, if finding the lines you like. I mean, we're all busy with kids and stuff, so I get it. I'm hoping that the new approach with the pools, I'm thinking we'll do between 6 and 10 each year. I'm hoping that really kind of drives a little more action since the prizes are tangible. Like I mentioned in my my text message on GroupMe, it's $30 to the winner. I mean, that's a decent chunk. I mean, that's going to get you, I can't remember who went for $30 in a rookie draft, but I mean, it's a decent chunk of money.
It might be a back end of round 1, maybe early round 2-ish type pick if we were talking a regular rookie draft.
So here, I just pulled it up. Here's one. Alvin Kamara went for $20 in the rookie draft last year.
Wow.
Okay. So, I mean, stuff like that. I mean, so if, we're paying out, if we're paying out 30 plus bucks to a winner of a pool, hey, you should participate. I mean, you're gonna lose your money either way if you don't participate. So you might as well take a shot at it. So I'm hoping that kind of takes off next year a little bit. As I mentioned when I brought it up, I'm open to any and all ideas for pools. So I hope people chime in and give their input and stuff. But the message was heard loud and clear that the people didn't like the mandatory betting for the most part. So we had to find a new way to do it, and I hope this works out a little better. That's all.
Right. I mean, one of the big things I liked about the mandatory betting was it just gave you a chance to. I mean, you just get action. I mean, people like Aaron, Joe are loving those types of things. Ruby, when we had him, would bet on anything, and it was kind of nice just to be able on a regular old Tuesday watching the NBA. I'll take the Hawks, you take the Celtics, something like that. Just to have a little action. So I'm going to miss that portion of it.
Well, I mean, it's still there for the people that want to bet. It's still there. It's just not mandatory, which I think is the best of both worlds. Let the people who want, like you and me, who want to, just bet on nonsense. It's there. We can bet on it and exchange money, and the people who don't want to have to worry about it, just want to play the fantasy side and maybe a pool here or there, they can do that. I think that's the best of both worlds. So hopefully it works out.
Was the penalty enforced on anybody this year?
Yeah, it was enforced on Mike Smith and Johnny Hirko.
Johnny, oh wow! I didn't realize that Johnny did. I knew about Mike. I didn't know about Johnny. Wow.
Yeah, they both. It was enforced once for each. So. Okay.
Considering the logistics of the league, I know you put this league together over a long period of time. What are your thoughts on it? What worked? What didn't work? You see any changes coming up? What do you think? Give us the commissioner's perspective here.
Yeah, I mean, I actually was really happy with how it worked out for the first year. I mean, you never know what you're going to get when you start the first year. You just never know how the group of owners are going to mesh. How the logistics are going to play out. I really love the scoring system. I think it makes every position basically equally valuable. It boosts up quarterbacks and tight ends, where in normal leagues it's like, who cares? I really like that aspect. I thought as we talked about the betting, so I'll skip over that part. That obviously didn't work out well, but that's fine. We adjust and move on. But overall, I just really liked how it played out. I think in terms of the fantasy aspect itself, I think the scoring is great. I love the point per carry. I love the point per reception, and I love Superflex and 2 tight end. I just think it brings up all kinds of value. I mean, we're in a league here where George Kittle had a ton of value. I mean, you don't find too many of those.
No.
I mean, people are clamoring for Jason Witten in the beginning of the year. Like, it's when you're doing something right when guys like that have a ton of value. So, I really like that aspect. I think the betting was really the only kind of thing I didn't like that didn't work out. But that's okay. We adjust. I thought the auctions went well.
Yeah.
The startup and the rookie draft, I think those went as smooth as they can be when you're not dealing with like an automated auction system. So, they're pretty smooth. Everybody kind of got it, and so overall, I'd say pretty good. What did you think? Anything positive or negative stick out for you?
I think you touched on it a little bit, is the far-reaching relationship of the owners here. I mean, if you think about it, if you're the starter of this league, you got to think of somebody, Mike Smith, who's like 4 people removed from you, right? If you think about it, you to me to Andy to Mike Smith. And you got a whole bunch of guys like that who are even further removed, and you make a league like this work, where there's that positive communication on group me, a little bit of ball busting. I think the league had it all. I thought it was a great year one. I think we are going to see a different year two. I thought we saw a very typical year one in terms of people trying to compete, feel each other out, and you mentioned that parity. I think we're going to lose that next year pretty big time. I think you're going to start to see a polarized People are going to realize they're not players at the beginning, and they're going to try to sell a little bit just because they're going to realize the situation. Because this will be our first second-year rookie draft, if you will, and they're going to see where and how that money goes. And some people might be looking at themselves like, wow, I can't compete. I got no money. I got to do something right now. And I think the cash thing is going to play a major role going forward. And, for me, that's going to be the exciting part, is looking at year two. And I think year two is when people really start to prepare for the future. And I think you're going to see that in spades in this league.
Yeah, I totally agree. We touched on it earlier, just the money situation. It's going to be a little crazy as we all kind of just adjust to who costs what costs what. It's even in season, you notice like people are kind of weary about their fab budget, like
Right.
not wanting to go kind of crazy unless they really had to. So we're all kind of just feeling each other out. I think as we settle in, as years goes on, we'll get a better idea of, sort of player value and budget value, who's worth what, and, what $100 means in terms of rookie dollars, so I do agree with that.
Clue about that is he would throw out his wild valuations where he got those. Maybe one day we can host him on here and see where he comes up with them. But you asked him what Tyler Eifert was worth, a guy who barely played this year, and he had a down to the cent valuation and a crazy explanation as to how he got there. So, Graham, since you figured it out, could you share it with the rest of the league, please, sir?
That'd be great. Thanks, Graham. Appreciate it.
Anything else coming up in the off season that you think the rest of the league should know about before we wrap up here?
Yeah, so we've got the playoff pool picks pool we're going to do. We've got a bunch of paydays, lump sum paydays coming up, which I'll take care of, obviously, once I get back in the office. I do all my fantasy while I'm getting paid to do it. So we've got a couple paydays. I'm gonna update all the budgets with the lump sum we get for the beginning of the year. There's the tax the rich sum where the top teams pay the bottom teams. We've got all that off-season stuff, which I'll keep everybody updated with.
All right, that definitely sounds good. Anything else you want to mention before we sign off here?
No, I think that's it. I just the last thing, I thank everybody for their participation this year. I hope everyone enjoyed it. I had a really great time in this league. It was a whole lot of fun, despite my own personal struggles to end the season. I really appreciate everybody sticking in while we had an owner leave and brought somebody in. So I know it's not always an easy transition. I just appreciate everybody, having fun with this league.
Yeah, definitely. We're always looking for guests to come on and, answer some questions, shed some light on their team, their division, just general conversation. So if you're, willing to come on the show and say some things, we'd love to have you. But our first podcast, we're going to sign off here, and Happy New Year to everybody. And we look forward to the off season in year two. All right, guys.
All right, see ya.